tunes. Actually, I haven't had any at all, but the voice is a bit better this week, so hopefully it's not going to be as... Maybe people like it gruff. Perhaps people are listening and thinking, oh, that's lovely.
Clifford.
Maybe not. Hello, and welcome to the Comedy Slab podcast. I'm Shane O'Connor, he's Adrian Lacey, and every week we get together. Sometimes we get together, and this is a trade secret. I don't know whether I should really reveal this. Sometimes we get together twice in a week and have the following week off.
Oh, not often enough.
No, it's been a while, hasn't it, since lockdown and all that malarkey, but we seem to be doing it week in and week out. But hey, we get together every week and we critique. Nay, not critique.
Hey, nonny, no.
Big up a comedy program. Sometimes we big it down. Sometimes we big it sideways.
I think we small it down.
Yeah. We get together and having watched or listened to a comedy show, and we tell you and each other what we thought of it. We'll play you a couple of clips of the said comedy program between now and the end of the podcast, and we'll also give it a mark out of 5 each, giving it a grand total out of 10. It was my turn to choose last week, and I don't know whether I'm a bit of a cheater on this one, Adrian. I mentioned it at the tail end of last week's podcast, I think, because this is one that I've been. I don't even think I should say it. I've been listening to for pleasure.
No. Enjoying comedy. Whatever next? You're letting the side down.
I can't see you, but I bet you've all got smashing blouses on.
I remember the show Bottom with
yeah.
wonderful Rick Mail, bless him.
Yeah, but he does a video, doesn't he, for the that's his chat up line, isn't it? What a smashing blouse you've got.
And also when he meets them, doesn't he say that's a smashing smock? Have I told you I played the farts in Bottom? I'm sure I have. The Bottom farts.
No.
In my sound engineering youth, yes. And I did I think just the one episode, but I really enjoyed it. And got to speak to Aid afterwards. So it was one Adrian speaking to another Adrian. And but they cut my farts out of the final show, or a lot of them.
Joking.
No, I had my fingers on the sampler. In those days, it was an adapted, because this is the 90s, of course. The electronics has come on in leaps and bounds, but it was adapted from what was it? Not Sanyo.
Yamaha?
No, but it was a sampler, but it looked like something that the Victorians might have made.
Right.
And I was playing, you wouldn't recognise it as a keyboard, but it was a row of buttons. And, it was fart 1, fart 2, fart 3.
Wow.
And I had to go with the action. That was the beauty of it, because it would reset automatically. The second you hit it, it would play, obviously. And we weren't used to that in them days. And it all sounds so archaic now, I'm aware. But so I was reacting, looking at the screen. I was up in the control room. They were obviously down the studio floor. But I had to react in real time to the way they were leaning their cheeks out. I'm doing this now, so if you hear me go off mic, I'm leaning my cheek. I think they were in the doctor's waiting room, right at the top of an episode.
Oh, that's one to dig out and have a look for, isn't it? That one with the bottom farts. Anyway, shall we? Before we go on, it's ankle tag this week, by the way, in case you want to play along at home. I'm not quite sure how that would work, but it always sounds like a nice phrase to say, doesn't it? It sounds very inclusive.
Yes.
And again, I'm a big fan of the fella, Steve Spears. I'm a big fan of Ellis James, and I'm a big fan of Katie Wick, so this should be a win-win for me, but we'll see as time goes on. It's a Steve Spears starring role in the radio series Ankle Tag. But more of that in a moment. Some comedy news, which I managed to dig out. I don't know if you saw this prior to me plopping it over to you. This is this Only Fools and Horses episode, allegedly banned.
Oh yeah,
by John Sullivan and re-edited over some of the Del Boy scenes. I don't really get the whole gist of the thing, because John Sullivan, of course, wrote an awful lot of it, didn't he? I don't know if he didn't write this episode. But he kind of was a bit unhappy the way that Del Boy had come across as a bit mean-spirited and a bit nasty to Rodney and a bit nasty to a few other people.
Yes. To answer your question just quickly, no, I hadn't seen it before you brought it to my attention for today. But I was confused. You've used the word over there. For a moment, when I skim read it before digging into it, I thought it was about a video edit over something. So I got the completely wrong end of the stick, not for the first time. But what it made me think, I don't know how you feel about this, given that John Sullivan was the writer, rest his soul, sadly no longer with us, but given he was the writer and would have written those words, it can only be a directorial thing, can't it? Or the way it was played by Nicholas Lyndhurst, or some kind of interaction between the two.
Well, it was David Jason, wasn't it? I think who he was unhappy with, or not.
Oh, sorry, right, yeah.
It was the Del Boy role that he was unhappy with. But yeah, I mean, maybe it's an interpretation thing, the way that he interpreted. But it doesn't sound like it, because he was, the episode we're talking about is a royal flush, and they meet this posh family. I think they go out shooting with them or something like that. I mean, I know it quite well, and think actually it's quite a. I never thought at the time, oh, that's out of character, or that doesn't work for me, or anything like that. Maybe I was just, brain out of gear and just enjoying it. Really, I mean, the thing for me is this. Is that what you want to do? Do you want to go back and, once it's been made, do you then think, oh, no, actually, I want to re-edit? It's like us going back on the podcast and going, oh, should we just re-edit these now and just change it completely? Or is it something that we should do you think?
I don't know, but apparently John Lennon said to George Martin, who was, of course, the fifth Beatle as the Beatles record producer, they were chatting at one stage, must have been post-Beatles split, and John let it be known to George Martin that there wasn't a single track he wouldn't want to do again. And George Martin said, what, not even Strawberry Fields, you're not happy with that? So, no, especially Strawberry Fields.
Really?
One of the finest songs of the 20th century, in my view, and the finest productions. Weird, isn't it? Yeah, I'm more of the moving on school, I think. Let it go. Let
it be, John. Let it be. That's
that as well. Yeah.
It's interesting, like you say. You got this whole thing of, well, he's there writing the words, and then he's coming back and saying he didn't really like it. I mean, this is all in a documentary apparently that's going to air on Channel 5 about Only Fools and Horses, the secrets and scandals. So they've got to try and dig up some kind of secret and scandal from somewhere. Otherwise, people will watch that and go, "Oh, I didn't see a single secret or scandal in that. It was awful, wasn't it?"
Yeah. So how is this? If it's true that this is a new spin on it or something we haven't heard previously, how has this only just come to light now?
I presume because of the documentary, and I think also I think they're putting it onto Blu-ray, aren't they, as well? Only Fools and Horses. So, and I think I read somewhere the legend that is Chris Wadsworth, the videotape editor that appears in.
Who I'm sure I knew. Well, I'm sure he talked to us in my training.
Didn't you say you saw him at, or you met him at, what's the training centre? I never went
Evesham,
there. Yeah.
Well, at least my stories are consistent. I don't remember saying that, but...
Anyway, Chris Wadsworth has said
that
he thought it wasn't a good episode either. He said, it's not a good episode. He said, some 20 years later, he said, can we do anything to take out Del being nasty? And he said... that the episode was shown to an audience to get a laughter track. So apparently it went out without a laughter track originally as well, which I don't think is a bad thing, This crops up in tonight's offering that we've got with Ankle Tag, because that had 3 series so far, 2 of which had a laughter track, and the one that we're going to hear from didn't. And I don't know whether it's just this particular thing, whether it's just the way I'm feeling, but I felt it was better for not having one.
I wondered if there was a little bit of the old jumping the shark here. Do you think there's some anxiety that, well, actually, I mean, you've given your opinion, which is that it worked as it was. But I wondered whether John Sullivan felt he pushed it a bit too far, or collectively somehow, as I say, to come back to the directorial thing. Okay, I got my knickers in a twist. I meant David Jason's character, but obviously, whether the director had pushed it too far because of this impulse you've always got. The more successful a show is, you're almost more pushed towards, we've got to do something new, and we've got to best the last week's edition, and next week's got to be even more sophisticated. Lots of shows fall into that trap, don't they?
Well, I think this again. It was a Christmas special, isn't it, if my memory serves me correctly.
I think I read that. Yeah.
And whilst they did. I mean, I think they did at some point. I mean, some of their Christmas specials. I think Miami Twice. I think sometimes I feel that went a bit too far when there was a double of Del Boy who was a mafia boss and and hilarity ensued kind of thing. And I kind of felt that was quite near to shark waters.
Yes.
And so I'd never really classed this one as being in that category. But you never know, do you, how people who are involved in it feel. And this is a good example, isn't it, really, of exactly how they can feel very different from audiences. Anyway, if you want to have a look at that, as I say, I think it'll probably be on the Channel 5 app or whatever that you can watch again. The programme I think they're talking about is Only Fools and Horses, Secrets and Scandals, and it airs on the 22nd of July 2022. So
anyway, it's out there, as you say. Do you want to ask me what I thought when you set the homework for this week or not?
Not really, but... But I will say,
yeah.
What did you think when I set the homework for this week?
See, you had to own it yourself, didn't you? You couldn't bear for me to move the show on.
I just don't like being told what to do. It's
you're a control freak.
Yeah,
I get that.
And I'm nosy. My wife said I say she said I'm nosy. Read it in a diary. But go on.
Yes, I will say. Well, I sort of said it last week, which is that I have heard it before. It's one of those, it's never been an appointment to listen shows.
Weren't you going to put it on the Slab at one stage?
Did I say that?
I think
it's possible. Yeah, I think I both said it and it was true.
Right.
For a moment, it sounded like I just made it up, but no, I would. He spat his tea out. The idea of me telling a little porky.
The idea of you being so honest about telling little porkies, that's what frightened me.
Oh, they're honest little porkies. If I have any porkies, they're honest. They might be vegan, but they're definitely honest. Yeah, I think I did, which would have made me listen to one beginning to end. It's one of those classic things. You've talked about it in the past, a point in your life when you happen to be driving back from work around the time of the 6:30 slot on Radio 4, which, as any fool know, it's a British birthright to expect comedy or your beloved, beloathed panel shows, panel games and so on at 6:30. So it's one of those things. I might have been making tea, depending on which part of the country you live in, or dinner, or the evening meal at that hour, and caught it then.
Although, having said that, what do I know? I've never watched Taskmaster, as a great man once said.
Yeah, you wouldn't let it lie, would you? That's gonna rankle for some years to come. Rankle tag, that is.
Thank you, Caesar. Hail. Anyway, so or at least a few
top geezer, Caesar.
at least a few showers. Shall we dance? No, hang on. Shall we just dip into a clip and have a little
or clip into a dip? I don't mind whichever we do.
Have a little soup song of what this is all about, and
yeah, let's have a soup spoon.
Can I apologise to the Welsh amongst us? I'm sorry. There you go.
Victoria Wood, thank you for that one.
No,
adapted,
yeah.
Adapted for the pod.
Because I didn't know that GRUFF is pronounced Griff.
You've been saying Gruff all these years, which would describe your voice in the last few weeks.
Exactly. I say Gruff, and you go, "Are you?" So apologies for that, and I'm sure there'll be other great examples of my ignorance towards your great nation between now and the end of the podcast. I will do my utmost to wear a hair shirt. And
you're not going to do an Anne Robinson, are you?
I'm got a shirt on at all. This is my own hair. So anyway, right. I know it's disgusting.
I wondered why I'd cut the pictures.
Yes. So the main character, let me tell you. Just basically what it's about. It's about Bob, who is played by Steve Spears. He's a former convict, and he's now living, because I think he's got nowhere else to live, with his son Griff. and with Griff's wife, Alice. And Griff is played by Ellis James, and Alice is played by Katie Wicks. And that's the kind of family dynamic. And then there are other characters that come and go in passing kind of thing. But the opening scene of this, and this is series 3, so they're kind of well established in characterization. But we catch up with Griff and his dad, Bob. And it's apparent that they're at Bob's Uncle Ernest's funeral. I don't think he knew Uncle Ernest particularly well. I don't think we need to know Uncle Ernest particularly well. Just suffices to say that he is an ex-Uncle Ernest. And whilst at the funeral, their attentions turn to family matters.
Dad, you're meant to be in mourning. Do you want to show some respect and stop watching Dragon's Den on your phone?
Listen, Griff, I am processing my Uncle Ernest's sad demise in the only way I know how. By watching Deborah Meaden throw 50 grand down the drain by investing in a new type of ethical pipe cleaner.
It's a wake, Dad. You're meant to be reminiscing with other members of the family.
I'll be honest, son. I'm not sure I even never met Uncle Ernest. After Dad disappeared when I was a kid, this side of the family's been a mystery to me. I've mainly turned up for the buffet.
So you dragged me to a funeral of someone you don't even know?
You should be glad. I normally stay away from these people. OK, a bit of fraud got me an ankle tag, but this lot make me look like Sister Wendy.
Well, Uncle Ernest wasn't a criminal, though, was he? He sounded like a saint to his eulogy.
That eulogy was the greatest work of fiction since Uncle Ernest's Spanish passport.
So is everyone here a criminal?
It's in the blood, son. One of our ancestors is on the Beer Tapestry nicking a falcon.
It's not in the blood, Dad. Look at me. I've literally never broken the law.
Where were you this morning?
The speed awareness course.
See?
Yep, but breaking the speed limit doesn't make you a criminal, does it?
But it is a crime.
Yes, but in the same way that a tomato is a fruit.
A point of information, isn't a speeding ticket, isn't that a civil offence? Not a crime.
I didn't know a tomato was a fruit. That's where it got me.
Well, you can tell from the seeds. I mean, that's self-evident, but you can't just tell from driving whether you're doing something criminal. Well, I imagine your driving's criminal, but...
It's awful. It really is terrible, yeah. Anyway...
You'll be wanting a headline, will you not?
Yes. Give us a steer.
Because I am a generous soul, I've got not one, but 2 headlines. I've shocked myself with my degree of preparation this week. I was here on time, was I not?
You
Please
were, yeah.
witness.
Yeah.
I was ahead of you, actually.
After I'd sent you an oblique British Rail reference.
That was beautiful. I wish we could share it with the listening. Well, I suppose we can. I could put it up on the podcast, but on Twitter feed @ComedySlab. He's got it dusted off a beautiful, what would it be, 1970s Intercity 125 post. Yeah. Where did you find this stuff?
I don't know.
It did bring a smile to my face, but and then I thought, you should have a poster alongside that. If HS2 ever gets up and running, and see how many minutes, £30 billion or whatever it is this week, 45 billion, shaves off the journey. Yeah. But let's not go down that route, literally. So my first headline, sort of tabloid headline, summing up how I felt about it, was, and it made me think of not so much an ankle tag, but a ball and chain. So I've come up with ankle tag, it's a bit of a drag. And the other one, which will make a bit more sense hopefully down the line, I thought I might go for the farce show.
Okay. It's not looking good whichever way we look at it, is it really?
It's not marvellous, but neither is it terrible. I don't want to be beastly.
Well, should we start with the good bits? Were the good bits? Were the bits that you liked?
We could do, or we could go. I mean, I suppose you hate me trying to be in control, but I was going to suggest where did it all go wrong early on, which you choose because you're a control freak, and I'm incredibly tolerant and liberal, as you know, in my lunch times. In my dream time, which would you prefer?
I don't mind. I don't mind. Honestly, I really don't mind.
Well, where it went wrong for me was right near the top. Which if it's going to go wrong very often, it is near the top of any show. As I say, I don't want to be beastly, and there's lots to like. But, and I will answer your other question, just all the right questions, not necessarily in the right order. But we'll get to the good bits later. But where a spoiler alert, but it's pretty unavoidable because it's near the top of the show, so we couldn't talk about the show without saying Bob finds his dad at the funeral. the dad he's never had, kind of thing. And the reaction is not nonplussed, but nothing like a believable reaction. And I suppose it must have happened at some time on a planet of 7 billion people. Someone's met their dad at a funeral for the first time. But it was just a credibility thing. And hence, I'll get this out the way early, which is why I had the second headline, The Farce Show. It only started making sense when I could say, okay, just relax. It's not a documentary. It's a farce. Because otherwise, it just wasn't working. My head couldn't compute it on any level.
So tell me about that reaction then. I mean, why did you expect that? It's interesting that I asked this, and I'll tell you why I asked this question, but why did you expect a different reaction from him when he met his dad? What did you expect him to do?
Well, in sitcoms aren't the real world, but there would be utter shock or disbelief. And it seemed to be, after all these years, kind of thing. But and I'm aware that I sound like someone reviewing comedy who hasn't got a sense of humour. So this is a problem. I know. I look at it differently, and this is quite interesting because I've listened to the previous two series. I took it on board differently because I'm acclimatized to what kind of character Steve Spears is playing. And I think at the very best, he's a sociopath. at the very worst, that's the kindest thing you could say. Yeah, I mean, he was in prison for fraud. He quite clearly, in dealing with his own son, will do what's best for him and not probably what's best for his son. Right. But could be a psychopath then. Yeah, I was going to say at worst he's probably a psychopath actually, because he doesn't really have any feelings at all towards anyone who crosses his path who could well be a victim of him. So to me it was like I wouldn't expect him. The only reaction I would expect is that he would think, right, okay, what's in it for me? What can I get from? But of course, that's the thing. That's what I'm bringing all that baggage from two series and going, okay, it kind of makes sense. Which, as you know, is you're a writer. When you do that, when you write it, you can't forget about all. You don't want to forget all about that you've written because that's the character that you've built up. Yeah, I just think it's fascinating. So I wouldn't blame you for that because. You don't, if you're coming to it fresh and you don't know what kind of guy this is. Well, as I say, I have listened to it, but only random episodes, and as I say, also not complete episodes. So it was a sort of pleasant accompaniment to be cooking or whatever, rather than me digging deep as we aim to on the Slab. And he wasn't particularly badly behaved in this episode, in that sense, was he? I mean, he's been more outrageously behaved. In other episodes, but this one I didn't think so. Again, I could forgive you for going right through to the end of the episode and going, well, I don't. Why is he not? It didn't make any sense. Then we go into again. It seems to make more sense trying to understand it as a farce, where the son, played as you say by Ellis James, Gruff, goes into his past in his head and in discussions with his wife and so on to try and he's worried that his daughter, who's just a baby, will become criminal. The worry is, the conceit is, there's something in the genes. It's genetic, yeah. And again, I mean, it's an interesting... It does create a colourful situation, but again, I've got this credibility thing. Unless I can see the genre as being farce, it doesn't make any sense. I just feel I'm barking up the wrong tree, trying to think, well, that's not particularly credible. He wouldn't do that, or you wouldn't do that. You just got to let go and say, no, this is an alternative universe where that can happen. And you presumably entered that universe a long time ago, 2 series before. Well, I think you suffer from a condition that I've suffered from a long time, which is the belief that everybody lives their life like you do. Seriously, and I used to. What, you mean you're not a fraudster? Well, no. The reason I'm wearing this frock tonight while we're recording is not what you think. No,
No, I used to think, and I just went through this period where I was consistently shocked at the way when I had a snapshot of the way other people live their life. Or I'd talk to people and I'd say, "Oh, you're doing X, Y, Z, and how did you react to that?" And they'd tell me. And until I relaxed down about that and thought, actually, no, everybody lives their life differently, and you just got to accept it. I became a lot happier and a lot less uptight about it all then. But
Yeah.
I mean, there is that kind of thing where you got to understand that there are people out there who don't know their father, and if they turn up tonight, they go, "Oh, it's you, is it? Oh, all right, okay."
Yeah.
I don't know. You're saying, so are you saying the writing is farce-like then, or the setup, the conceit?
It's the situations, I would
Right.
say. I mean, we end up with Gruff, again, a bit of a spoiler, but by all means, pause your podcast, come back to us after you've listened to the show, which you'll find on BBC Sounds as we speak. Gruff ends up in Tesco's, and this is where I did actually manage a smile, trying to make amends for stealing skips, those wonderfully nutritious snacks, trying to replace the ones that he stole in the mid-90s, 25 years before.
Yeah.
Now, that doesn't happen, I imagine, day to day in your average Tesco. But again, it's an enjoyable situation, and it's very creative thinking by the writers, who we must mention, Gareth, Gwynn, and Benjamin Partridge. No relation, I'm guessing, to the fictional character we're forever referencing.
Every week, just to mention it.
I mean, how did you react to that? You seem to smile. We see each other on Skype. You've just disappeared, and maybe you're smirking.
No, it's a no smirking area here.
Oh, so sorry.
The whole supermarket. I mean, I thought it was fantastic. I mean, I really like some of the writing and the throwaway lines and all that kind of stuff. And he'd made some comment about he didn't like dogs or something, or dog charities.
Dog charities, yes. But then the security guard picks up on it.
But she said, and he doesn't like dogs. And he went, "All right, come this way, Cruella de Vil." Which,
yes.
You just think, it's just nice, that kind of, it was I don't know. There were lots of it that kind of made me smile, or at least, and at certain times have a bit of a titter as well. But this whole idea that he's trying to make amends to break the bloodline of thievery,
if you will.
And what he's going to do, he's going to make an amends by returning these skips, and along the way musing what are skips made of, because there were like nothing else on this planet where there's as a crisp snack.
Yes, they pushed this crisp snack envelope
because he was putting food back on the supermarket shelves. They did some testing of it. And he said, and they're still no nearer finding out what skips are made of, which is just
yeah, that is, again, it's another example of you saying the line, and I laugh. There's definitely some quotable stuff. I wish I'd written more down, but it's the way he's told to freeze when he's in the snacks aisle, because he might be putting these tampered goods in there. And it turns out you really can't do it. Oh, no, there was a lovely line about, actually, it shouldn't be broken up. It was a multi-pack anyway.
Yeah.
So he's actually broken the law again, arguably, or broken food rules.
I mean, and it should be. I mean, I was just having a quick look just to see what Gareth, Gwynn and Benjamin Partridge have been involved in. Gareth certainly he's been a gag writer. I mean, but again, he'd been doing the Now Show, and his writing partner was a gag writer on the News Quiz. So they're well established gag writers in that sense. So you would think, or rather, you would expect that the whole thing would contain as many gags as it did. There were some running gags that I thought they did so well. Things like Bob, as we'll find out in a minute, he pretends that he's a barrister after watching a few episodes of Kavanagh QC, and he's obsessed with the fact that barristers talk about cricket all the while. And I think they used it 3 times in the end, saying, I don't like cricket.
That. But you had to be of a certain age. Sorry, I'll let you finish the quote.
Well, it's a Dreadlock Holiday quote, isn't it? But it's I don't like cricket. And he went, "Oh, you love it?" And they did it in various forms 3 times through the whole thing. And I thought that was just lovely.
That was beautiful. That made me at least smile, if not chuckle. But if you didn't know the 10cc song from, 1976?
Yeah.
That was a bit excluding of anyone under 50, I would say.
Well, I don't know. I mean, the Second World War happened well before I was born, and I'm still managed to keep up with who won that. So,
well, I'm not sure it's entirely clear who won it longer term, but let's not go down that particular tributary.
I think Germany just changed the rules, didn't they, midway through? That's the difference, really.
That's true. They didn't play fair, if you ask me. And, coming back to cricket, they weren't playing cricket.
Yeah.
But wisdom aside, and enough of your wisdom, do you know all the lyrics to There'll Be Bluebirds Over?
Are you singing it on some kind of radio system there? There'll be bluebirds over. Over.
Yes, it's the little known version of White Cliffs of Dover.
Yeah.
Well, I think we've demonstrated that since you didn't volunteer any lyrics to that, for the younger audience, they may not know the Dreadlock Holiday fabulous song by 10cc. But of course, altogether, they can Google it.
They need to get out more. I think that's the bottom line with that one, really.
I think they need to stay in more. Anyway, shall we have clip number 2? Not that it's for me to suggest to a control freak.
Yeah, no. As I mentioned, after getting reacquainted with his long lost father, Bob's. Really, you kind of, again, this is the measure of Bob, isn't it? I was going to say he's told him for some reason that he's a successful lawyer. It seems to be for no other reason that he's watched quite a few episodes and he's a big fan of Kavanagh QC. I don't know. I couldn't really figure out whether there's any more to it than that. But I don't think Bob as a character needs there to be any more. I'm not sure. But anyway, he's told his dad that he's a successful lawyer. His dad is up on a charge. And so because of this, he says to Bob, well, why don't you come along to the case conference that we're having? And so he does. He goes along and he meets the real QC.
Bob, come in. Glad you could make it. Anna, this is my son Bob. Bob, this is Anna, my lawyer.
Hello, Bob.
Hi, Anna. Sorry I'm late. I was up late watching the cricket. Amazing bowling, and also a nice bit of batting.
Cricket fan, eh?
Oh, I just love the audacity of sliding about on the grass pitch in white clothes. Every day is like the Dad's Doorstep Challenge.
Yes, well, I don't like cricket.
You love it?
No, never liked it, never will. It's just a low-energy rounders with a meal in the middle. Let's get on talking about the case.
So Bob knows the essentials, but maybe you should explain the details. And I know you lawyers like to speak in Latin, so you go ahead. Don't you worry about me.
Yeah, before we do that, I tell you what, there was this one case I did a few years ago.
Sorry, what are you doing?
Just an anecdote to kick things off.
We only have 4 hours.
Listen, I've done all these meetings you've had Hot Wheels, right? I think I know what I'm doing here. It's always nice to loosen up a bit with an anecdote.
Go for it, son.
So, I was sitting in chambers one day and I got a phone call, and who should it be but the Bishop of Norfolk, asking me to defend a young vicar in an ecclesiastical court.
Isn't this a plot from Kavanagh QC?
Don't think so. Anyway, let's move on.
So she obviously watches. Yeah, maybe it's one of those shows I should have enjoyed sitting next to you on the sofa, virtually or otherwise, and your giggles would have infected me with one of the nicer infections going around at the moment, and I would have laughed along.
Here's the thing, and we can't do it, but I wish we could. I wish we could then erase that, as it were, or park it, or and then play that episode, but with an audience, and see whether that makes a difference, or whether that
would be very interesting, wouldn't it? As with the Only Fools and Horses, if you could sit there with an A/B comparison, that would be fascinating. Can I ask you what you felt about Katie Wicks in this? Well, since we're slamming this particular episode, what did you feel of her in this episode, and indeed in this series?
I just think she's just a great asset to anything that I've heard her in, any comedy that I've heard her in, simply because she delivers, in my opinion, she delivers what is required of her. She doesn't try and steal the limelight. She doesn't try and get in front of anybody. She doesn't step on anybody. She's just, and I think she's quite low key in this.
She is low key, but can I just say, and I will preface this by sort of agreeing with you on her vast strengths. Great in not going out, and she was in Party. Wasn't she?
Yeah, she was awesome.
Yeah,
Yeah,
fabulous.
yeah.
But for me, cover your ears, Katie, if you're listening to this. Don't listen to this. Unusually, this is the only case where I've had this little niggling worry that she's not quite lifting it off the page. And I did worry further, or I did wonder if it was to do with the fact we're back to no studio audience, because as you were saying last week, if I've understood correctly, this is a lockdown recording.
I think so.
Could it be that she was recording remotely and couldn't quite get into the vibe of it?
Oh, I never thought of that. Yeah. I didn't feel that either. I didn't kind of get that sense.
I hope I'm wrong, and I hope nobody else is troubled by it. But it's one of those things, I couldn't unthink it. Once I lost a bit of faith in realism's the wrong word, as I say, in farce, but the whether she was really inhabiting the character on its own terms.
You see, I mean, when you see her in something like Not Going Out, I think she's almost like a scene stealer there because
she's so slow
because of her deliveries, and it's just, I mean, the lines are just great as well. And I think, I kind of get the impression people like Lee Mack, he wants the best for very often what he's written rather than for him and that moment in the limelight. I think he's past all that if he was ever there. Yeah. But I kind of got the impression that this was, she was happy to be between the Steve Spears and Ellis James, between the between the two of them, and I mean that, like I say, I just felt it was underplayed deliberately, and I don't know, I love her. I must admit, I think she was in Stathlet's Flats, wasn't she, as well, and she had a much more manic role in that. But I don't know, I just think she's an asset to everything she's involved in. I really do.
So I did have a little, very quickly, I sense we're heading towards marking out of 5 territory each, but there wasn't quite enough sound from the baby for me to believe it was a baby. I know it would be a studio baby, but even so, I just didn't hear enough of it, and it was the radio equivalent of having a very obvious plastic dummy for a baby.
Right.
They're all talking about it and all looking at it and talking to it at various stages, talking to her, Carys. And then we had the tiniest of peeps out of her. But,
it's difficult to do, though, isn't it? Because in real life, babies don't tend to respond to you in the way that toddlers will or children will.
There is that. I mean, there was a screaming one wherever I was the other day, was it on a train? They don't generally work to direction, but hey, it is fiction, and you can manipulate it, especially when it's fast.
I just wonder whether you then end up kind of, it sounded like CD 137.
There is that.
Baby FX.
The answer is to get a new recording rather than give up on it altogether.
Yeah.
But hey, that's a personal view.
Come on then, let's give it some numbers and put it out of its misery. I think you should go first.
Well, I don't think it should be misery, and I can't be as miserable as maybe I sounded in my score. I've got to give it a 3, because there is a lot to like about it, as I said right at the outset. And I feel to some extent there's something wrong with me that I didn't like it more. So I don't blame the show, and I wouldn't want to prejudice myself or anyone else against this show, or it's a strong cast, and writers have done some good work. So there's loads of hope, both for me and for my perception of the show, and other stuff that people work on that have worked on this show. 3 out of 5.
Okay, it's an odd one for me because it's a 4 from me. Because I just kind of got this real, I don't know, I've really kind of got an affinity with the thing. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's the time I spent on Ankle Tag myself or...
I'm sorry, I thought you meant the show, but... You're in remand.
Yeah, I'm on remand, yeah. I don't know, because it's not a classic. It's not up there, it's not a Blackadder or anything like that. But there's just something about it. I think it's nice writing. I think it's nice setups. I think, gags are plenty. Cast are awesome. I just really liked it. I just really warmed to it, and really through 3 series, I've kind of got a real affinity for it now. So it's a 4 from me. It's a 7 out of 10. for ankle tag.
Can I just say, as a footnote, a friend of mine worked before she retired in the prison service, and apparently ankle tag technology, this is, I think, run by Serco, it's so, or was, so behind the curve, it's actually based on landline technology. Wow. It's not even mobile phone technology.
Wow.
How does that work? Does that mean you have a long cable between you and the prison?
You have to, every night, you have to, 7 o'clock, you have to go up a telegraph pole and hang from it like some kind of criminal bat.
And people throw rotten fruit, which includes, as we know, tomatoes.
Ankle Tag, then, BBC Studios production, and as Adrian said, you can find it on BBC Sounds as we speak at the moment. We can't vouch that it'll still be there, depending on when you come back to this. Next week, what have you got for us?
Well, this is a recommendation from someone whose name I've invoked before. She's actually a mate from my local choir, but she is a slabaholic.
Oh,
I'm delighted to say. Nice. And she did say, I'm not just saying this, and I do genuinely believe she means it. She's a very sincere person called Joss. She said the show keeps getting better.
Oh, wow.
So we'll have that, won't we, as a bit of praise.
So are we preaching to the choir or not? I don't know. I don't know where.
Well, she can stay in the altos as far as I'm concerned. What she said, we should get our laughing gear our listening gear and looking gear, eyes and ears, on a show which I to this moment still haven't seen, but it's on Amazon Prime, I believe, and you'll put all the details up as ever. It is called Hacks, and it centers. Have you heard of it?
No, never.
It centers on, you could say, she tells me, a sort of Joan Rivers type figure who's showbiz is a cruel business, as we know. If it's literally Joan Rivers, she kept working, I think, pretty much till the end of her life. Certainly, I was invoking a quote from her the other week where she was talking about being 77 and being rejected, but that's showbiz. But then she'd carry on working and touring. But anyway, this Joan Rivers type is a bit more washed up in career terms. And I think it's the agent who puts her together with a younger blade, puts some young blood in the mix, and they ruffle each other's feathers. And then, we'll have to find out what happens. But it sounded to me like a good premise that I wanted to buy into. This is just Joss explaining it. So I passed that on in good faith. Haven't done my homework yet, but that is our collective homework. And we're going in right at the ground floor, Series 1, Episode 1 of Hacks, which you will find, I'm assured, on Amazon Prime.
Love it. It's American then, I'm guessing. It is an American production.
It is indeed, yeah.
I love it. Do you know what I said to you? Was it last week or the week before? A couple of weeks back, I was saying that when the ones that we haven't heard of. And that's what the show's all about, as well as celebrating the known. It's also a sachet into the unknown, isn't it? Leaping off into the void that is Hacks next week. Yeah, well, thanks for the recommendation. If you got one, by the way, if you're sitting there thinking, well, why haven't they slabbed X, Y, and Z comedy? What's the matter with them? Have they not thought of it? Well, probably the answer is no. So recommend it, suggest it by all means. We do take a lot of suggestions on board, and we do love it because, again, I guess if it's somebody else suggesting it, the likelihood is that it could well be something that we've not come across before. You can do that on social media, can't you? Of course.
They can indeed. A very natural lead-in, thank you, what a pro, into me talking about anti-social media. We are at Comedy Slab on Twitter. Do please follow us there. And likewise, that is the same handle, at Comedy Slab, for our Facebook page, lovingly updated by his nibsters, Shane. And then a personal recommendation, if you can meet people in person where you are and where we are with certain notifiable diseases at the moment, or you can do it via Zoom or other proprietary video installations. Pass the good word on about the Comedy Slab. We'll love you for that, as will whoever you tell. And finally, a nice juicy star rating on Apple Podcast / iTunes will be appreciated, as would a little bit of a blurb saying why you like the show and selling us by the pound. Did you get the reference there?
Let's face it, you don't get many of me to the pound, but you'll probably get a few more of him to the pound. Is all I'm going to say, because I don't want to.
Well, not many more post lockdown and my 7-day-a-week gin and tonic habit. But thank you for the flattery. I'll take that.
I think you've still got it by a neck, to be honest with you.
Well, I'll tell you what my girlfriend's daughter said the other day. when I was in a chair and briefly in the bright sunshine, so trying to get some sun to my bones, and she observed that my tummy looked like a smiling face. So that suggests a certain fold, which I quickly covered up after that remark.
Yes, it's time to get your mankini, pack it away, and not bring it out again. Until next time, then, I'm going to nick a line because I forgot to mention it in the. I've got it.
Nick a line, isn't that where you dry your underwear?
That's where I put my nick a line on. Yes, because I forgot to mention it in the podcast, and I thought it was so funny at the time. I'm off to see my my associates, Desperate Dan. They call him that because he's got a weak bladder, and Four Finger Charlie, who eats Kit Kats in one go. I just love that.